You must remember this, a kiss is still a kiss, a sigh is just a sigh. The fundamental things apply as time goes by. And when two lovers woo, they still say I love you, on that you can rely. No matter what the future brings as time goes by.
You to our May 15th program. Many of you have seen Bill Flynn on TV or certainly heard him on the radio, so now you get to see him in person tonight. He's going to give us a wonderful presentation. Bill has been involved in broadcasting since he was a student at Wilkes College in Pennsylvania in the 70s, and his career has gone from news reporting and voicing commercials to being an MC, and then to sales, management, disc jockey, and also MC on radio. The most remembered event, he tells me, in his career was the 3 days he spent with the White House advance team and the Secret Service, leading up to and being chosen as the MC for former President Reagan's visit to Endicott in 1984. And some of you, I'm sure, do remember that. Bill is now in sales and broadcasting at Equinox Broadcasting in Johnson City. And many of you have probably seen his polka show on TV on Saturday night, but also heard his polka radio shows. Actually, his current radio polka show is heard in over 100 countries through the 247-member Polka Heaven Network. His shows are also carried in 7 counties and in 3 states here. His most popular show, and I know some of you heard this, is Sunday mornings from 7 o'clock until 12 noon on WCDW Cool 100 in Binghamton, and that show is always a live program. He started his career in AM radio, and now he's featured in both AM and FM, and he's here tonight to talk with us about the change from local ownership to corporate takeovers in radio. Bill Flynn.
Thank you.
Oh, you're most
Thank you very
welcome.
much. It's so nice of you.
All right.
Appreciate it very much. I don't know what to say, everybody. Thank you very much, Linda. Thank you for coming. When you do these events, you never know who's going to show up, where people are coming from, where they're going to be. And when I told the folks, is this cracking up or is that okay? That I would do this, I did not know what I was going to talk about because there's so many different avenues of approach that I can use. The first talk I did, like Linda mentioned, was when President Reagan was here, and I spent those days with the White House advance team and the Secret Service. Bob Mopper, God rest his soul, was the president or the district governor of Rotary, and he had me speak in 6 weeks to 58 service clubs. I was everywhere. We were in certain counties, and not only here in the Binghamton area, but all around. So that was a talk that I did for a long time, but that was 30 years ago, 1984, September. That was the first talk that we did. The second talk that I usually do, and I think you'd find this interesting before I get into my discussion tonight, my second talk is on music on radio. My music on radio, what you have been listening to your whole lives on radio, and how things change every 10 years, the music changes. I do a talk on that, and like from 1956 to 1963, this is a talk I do on music, all right? There was the birth of music back then was Elvis Presley, the Drifters, the Four Seasons, remember this music? And Fats Domino, remember that? That was 56 to 63. That was the birth of rock and roll. Then, in those same years, the extreme music, Chubby Checkers Twists, people saying, oh my God, what is that? That is so different. That was 1960. Also Little Eva's Locomotion. Then on the doldrum side, see there's three categories of music. One is the bird that I mentioned, the other is extreme, and the third category is called doldrums, soft music. Bobby Vinton, Jerry Vale, Johnny Mathis, the Platters, which some of you would like to hear on radio again, I'm sure. Then the other category is crossover. Crossover music means that the entertainers were played on pop music stations and also on country. Well, back in the 56 to 63 decade, people like Johnny Cash and Patsy Cline and Lynn Anderson, all right? Then about 10 years later, 1964 to 73, all of that changed. The music I just mentioned was gone. 64 to 73, you heard the Beatles, you heard the Four Tops, Sonny and Cher, Simon and Garfunkel as pop music. The extreme music at that time was Jimi Hendrix, Deep Purple, the Doors, group like that. And the doldrums, the soft music which the ladies loved, was Engelbert Humperdinck, Helen Reddy, the Carpenters, and like that. So I do a talk on that. And the strength of radio. And the strength in radio now seems to be the talk shows. People listen to radio for different reasons. AM and FM. AM is an information media. If you want school closings, traffic, weather, sports, and news, you got it on AM. Not much on FM, because FM is more of a music media. People listen to FM for that one reason, to hear the music. And right now, it seems that on talk radio, the incredible audiences are going over there because of all what's happening in our country. The three major scandals in Washington now between the IRS investigation, Benghazi, and the Justice Department seizing the records of APs. You're on top of that. Those are huge stories. All of that is going on in Washington. The abortion doctor found guilty. So talk radio has gained in audiences so much. Their demographics have gone so much, so high, but it's an older crowd. On AM radio, people are usually 40 plus. You can go to the mall, and you can ask people there, 24 to 35-year-old, what's Benghazi? What's going on in Benghazi? What are you talking about? What happened with the IRS investigating oh, but I can tell you who the top three are. Dancing with the Stars, and the top three people that are on, what's that other show? American Idol, you know, so AM radio is a much older audience, but people seem to be involved more and more in that. So that's the second talk I do on radio. The third talk I do is about my career. What I started to do and what I ended up doing and being. Many times when people begin a career, it changes. You go on to something else. A perfect example of a career change, which I did also, is Harry Lewis. Y'all know Harry Lewis? First time I saw Harry Lewis, it was in the 70s. We're at some bar in Endicott, Day Hollow Road. And Danny and Sally Needham's band is playing, and this guy is calling the square dances. Duck for the oysters, dive for the clams, down to the hole in the garbage can. Harry Lewis. Within a year, he was the mayor of Johnson City. What a career change, huh? What a career change. I often tease him about that. Well, I started, when I graduated high school, I was thinking of going to the seminary or going on to study law. So I went to the University of Scranton, and then I transferred over to Wilkes College in Wilkes-Barre, and I had a degree in political science. I love politics. I eat, sleep, and drink politics. Even though I'm the polka king, I love that. So I graduated from Wilkes College in Wilkes-Barre with a degree in political science, and I was broadcasting during my college years in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre on radio. I was working 40 hours a week at the radio station, and I was carrying 18 credits at the college. It was a rough time. But back then you can do it, you know. So I did that, and then all of a sudden, the radio station decided to play polka music for 48 hours, every weekend, 6 o'clock Saturday morning till midnight on Sunday. Nothing but polka. And I says, oh my God. Well, my mother was Ukrainian, my dad was Irish, and I knew a little bit about it. So I needed the money for school, so I did that for 3 years, and I began to really, really like it. And I said, this is fun music. It's a happy time. People come out and they just enjoy so much. So I really started to like that. And I did that on the side while I was going to college. So being in the right place at the right time. I'm at Wills College my senior year. I'm in the lobby at the television station because I had about 2 hours before my next final exam. So I went to the lobby of the TV station. I'm looking at all the pictures on the wall, and up behind me came the news director of the TV station, Wilkes-Barre, WBRE, Channel 28. He says, "Can I help you?" I says, "Well, no, I got another hour before my next examination, and I just wanted to walk around." He says, "What do you study?" I said, "Political science." Ooh. And the president of the radio club and the president of the drama club. He says, "Well, you know," he says, "we have an opening right now for a news reporter. We need somebody to cover city and county government in Scranton. We have a reporter in Luzerne County. We have a reporter down in Hazleton area." I says, "Well, that's what I've studied." So within 10 minutes, I was talking to the camera, sitting there doing a news report, and within a week I was hired. I was hired at the TV station. And my aspirations at the time was to go on to college and study law. So I just liked so much doing television, but all the while I was doing the polka show on that other station, the radio. So then someone from this area heard me, and they asked if I would do a polka show up here. So I recorded a 25-minute show, and I sent it up. I think it was KOP, and they played it every Sunday for about 2 years. And I wasn't in the area yet, but they were playing that show. It was real popular. So then after 2 years in television, nobody's leaving. Everybody's staying there. The same weather guy, the same anchor guy, the same sports person. I wasn't going anywhere. So I put out the resumes, and I got a call to come up here and work as a news reporter at WENE with Bob Huckabone over here, WENE. So I took the job. I came up, I did the morning news, and Andy Hubble, the manager, said, "We have an FM station. Would you put the polka show over there?" I says, "Oh boy." So that was MRV, Star 105. So we put the polka show on the FM, and then I worked as a news director on the AM side, WENE. At that time, that was the big hot top 40 station. But at that time, Merv Griffin and his wife, who owned the Endicott stations, divorced. And his wife was able to pick up all the radio properties, all the radio stations, Atlantic City, Endicott, all around the country. So she sent in some people who we didn't really like the way they were running the station. So within a day, NBF came running after me, and they picked me up, and I went over there, and I was there for 25 years at WNBF with Bill Parker and John Leslie and Joe Sobel, and you probably remember some of these names, do you? Yeah? And I worked over there for quite a while, and then I went on to Cool 100, because I had to tell you that back in the old days that I'm talking about, all the radio stations were owned by a local owner. The local owner knew the community. He knew the people at the station, cared an awful lot about the community, and all of us at the time were making good money and were having fun. But as soon as the corporations came in, corporations bought all the little mom and pop radio stations, and their philosophy is a lot different than the mom and pop people. So when I came up here in 1970, there were 7 radio stations in our area. There was WYNR AM, WENE, WKOP, WEBO, and WNBF, 5 AM stations. Then on the FM side, there was WKOP-FM, which is now the Whale, and there was the Quiet Island, which is now the Hawk. So those are the only stations here then at the time in the 70s. You fast forward to where we are now, we have 21 radio stations now in our area, compared to 7 back then. FM's just come popping up all over the place, one after another. And here they are. In Endicott, there's a company called Clear Channel. Clear Channel owns 6 radio stations, and they're based in Georgia. They have, as part of their team, they have WYNR, which is now more of a 70s format on the AM side. They have WENE, which is all sports on the AM side. They also have over there 4 FMs, Clear Channel in Endicott. One is WKGB, it's a 92.5 frequency, it's an Alvin rock station. WNXW called Mix, that's an adult contemporary station. They also have WBBI, which is now a 70 station, and also carries Senators hockey. And they have WMRV Star 105, which is a pop contemporary station. So those are the 6 in Endicott. All right, now in Binghamton, there's 5 radio stations. And since I left there, well, I'll get into that, but when I was there, the owner of the stations in Binghamton was a company called Stoner Broadcasting. Boy, they were terrific. They were terrific. They let the manager locally run the ship. We all had fun, news, sports, and weather people, and we all were involved very much in the community. But Stoner sold the company to American Radio, which owns WBZ in Boston, big company. They had the radio companies for about 4 months. Then they sold to a company called Wix Broadcasting. It's all corporations. Corporations are in now. The Wix Broadcasting Company that bought WNBF and the whole group was from Texas. They had it for about 2 years, and I was still there. Then Citadel came in. The Citadel Radio Group, they bought it. They were the 4th owner. So within about 10 days after Citadel came in, their philosophy of broadcasting was entirely different than what Roger Neal and myself and Bill Parker, Bernie Kennedy, we were all used to. We just didn't like the philosophy. So when Citadel came in, within a week, Bill Parker and I retired, or resigned rather. The whole sales staff left. There was a lot of people leaving there. So I ended up over at INR for a while until I was picked up by Cool 100. They were chasing me for quite some time. So Citadel Broadcasting sold to Cumulus Broadcasting. Cumulus Broadcasting sold to Town Square Broadcasting. So in the past 8 years, there's been 8 different owners of the stations in Binghamton. Town Square Media is now the new owner. They are WNBF, 1290, you're all familiar with that. Their other AM was the old WKOP. It's now called WYOS. It's sports. Their country station is 98.1 The Hawk. Their classic rock station is The Whale. And another rock station is one called Wild. Those are the 5 owned by Town Square in Binghamton. So you got 5 in Binghamton, 6 by Clear Channel in Endicott, all right? Then along comes the company that I'm with now. We are Equinox. We are locally owned. We're not a corporation. The owner of our company, George Harris, is a broadcaster. Well, George came after me 4 or 5 times. We had several meetings. He wanted my polka show so much on the FM site. Really wanted the money more than anything, you know, all the sponsors we brought. So I sat down with George on 5 different occasions, and I decided to go over there. I took my AM audience over to FM. 25 years I'm on NBF with the polka show. And I said, well, here's a chance for me to get over on the FM side. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, because no matter where I went, people in their 20s and 30s are saying, my mother and my grandmother don't know where you are. And one guy says, Mom, Bill Flynn is on FM. What's that? Older people never, ever listened to FM. So I gained a new audience, those that were listening to FM. Then we had to put out flyers like I have on the table. we had to put off flyers at all the festivals I did. Here's where Bill Flynn is. So finally, that was like 7 years ago, so our audience is huge, huge here. So finally, people came over to that. So Cool 100 is Equinox Broadcasting. Since I've been there, Cool 100 has put on 4 more radio stations. They're on that sheet that I put on your table. We have a total of 5 radio stations owned by Equinox Broadcasting in this area and 3 in Elmira. What we have here is Cool 100, which is 60s and 70s. WRRQ 106.7 is all 80s. Sunny 107.1 is soft music, Billy Joel and James Taylor, a lot of soft music. Those are the 3 here. Another one here is called The Drive, it's a classic rock, and Z93. They're on this sheet. So we have 5 stations here in Johnson City, and 3 more up in Elmira. Those have just come on within the past year or so. But every station is for a different age, a different gender, a different demographic. People listen to what they want, so we try to break it up. The only thing, like Liz Fanning was saying, she says, where's the 50s? Where's the 40s? I crave to hear that music. I don't hear the 40s music, the big bands. I don't hear the 50s music on radio. And I said, Liz, very politely, where's my Jerry Bill? Where's my Johnny Mathis? Where's all, you folks remember all that music, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's hard for salespeople in broadcasting today who are in their 30s to try to sell music of 40s, 50s, and 60s when they weren't even born. They don't know the music at all. They don't know the format. That's one reason why nobody's playing anymore the 40s or 50s. The other reason is the advertisers. The advertisers say to the salespeople, hey, that's people 65, 70 years old. Their house is paid for. Their appliances are paid for. Their TVs are paid for. Their mortgage is paid for. Their car is paid for. We don't want to advertise to them. We want the 25 to maybe 50-year-olds. Advertisers argue that. If you watch TV and it's an older show, you'll see the scooters and you'll see the beach show. It's a different, you won't see McDonald's or any of the fast foods or any of the other advertisers that you would see on a station that has a younger audience. So that is the reason that we don't have the 40s or 50s. I guess you gotta, don't watch WSKG, Liz, or put on your CDs. So anyhow, the Equinox Broadcasting that I worked for had 1 station here in this area when I went over there. Now there's 5, and there's 3 more in Elmira. Locally owned, locally owned. The other local broadcasting group here is Magic 101.7. They're on the Vestal Parkway. Steve Galinsky owns that. He only has the 1 station, but he, like my boss, George Harris, is a local guy. He's here, and it's not a corporation. The other radio station that is locally owned is in Owego. It's WEBO. They are an AM-FM combination, and they're doing a good job. I listen to them a lot. They sound real, real good. They have an AM and FM in Owego, and they're very popular. The other 2 stations are nonprofit. The college, WHRW, SUNY, Binghamton University, and of course WSKG, PBS, 89.3. That's a beautiful format over there as well. So those are the radio stations in the area now. As I said, there's over 20 now. And I don't know which one you listen to, but there's certainly a lot of choices, and that's nice. Now, television is pretty much the same way. I'll get into that in a minute. You used to have 2, maybe 3 TV stations. My God, how many do you have now? How many TV stations are out there now with the cables and all? Holy moly, we'll get into that in a moment here. So, in the 1970s, around the country, there were 1,500 AM radio stations. There were 4,900 FMs in the 70s. Today, there's 4,600 AM stations around the country and 12,000 FMs around the country. One of the things that people keep telling us is they think we have more and more radio stations. Now the radio station begins with a W. If I ask you people, maybe 40 plus, what station you listen to, you would say back to me WINR, WNBF, you would give me the call letters. But if I ask your kids, your grandkids, what station do you listen to, they have no idea. It's all numbers, 101.2, 95.6, 87.1. They don't know the call letters of the station. And the stations today are allowed to put on more frequencies. The station I'm on, Cool 100, WCDW, you can hear me on Cool 100, 95.1, 100.7. There's 5 different frequencies on the dial where you can pick up my show. Those are not stations, those are called frequencies. And more stations are doing that. You put an antenna in Windsor, you get way up to Norwich. You put an antenna in Owego, you'll get way up to probably the Elmira area. And this is what we call frequencies, not radio stations. Okay? So far, so good. So we went from 7 radio stations to 21 in probably 30-year period. What is the difference between AM and FM? As I mentioned to you, AM is a information media. If you want news, you've got to go there. You want sports, you got to go there. You want the school closings first, you got to go there. FM is more concentrated on the music side. FM is a music media, although they do give you what I just said, but they don't give it for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes. They get it from the AM side. On the AM and FM, people remember on the AM side who the announcer is. 60% of people that listen to AM radio can tell you in a minute who the announcer is. Only 20% on the FM side know the announcer. Because the FM people are pushing buttons. They want music. They're not loyal listening to one radio station. They're looking for music. Commercial recall. AM people remember commercials. 40% of AM listeners remember the commercial. Only 10% of FM listeners remember the commercial because they tuned out. They want music. Your AM listeners are very loyal. They'll keep it on one station. They'll stay there. Where your FM listeners like to search for music all the time. They're going back and forth, back and forth. Now, commercials, which you love. You listen to commercials, right? You love to listen to commercials. In our business, commercials is how we make our living. We have to have the sponsors. They pay the bills, they pay our salary. All right? So we were very comfortable on the AM side of NBF with what we were doing. But then when the corporations come in, the corporations say, no, we gotta make more money over here. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna play 4 songs, and we're gonna take a break. We're gonna play 4 minutes of commercials. We'll play the car dealer, the bank, the bakery, and the clothing store. Then we'll go back to our music. But then one of the corporations says, wait a minute, we can make more money by selling a 30-second commercial as compared to a 60-second commercial. A 60-second commercial, let's say, is $30. A 30-second commercial is $20. So if you run 6 minutes of commercials at $30 minutes, 6 minutes, you're bringing in $180. But if you bring 12 30-second commercials in that break, it's still 6 minutes, but you're bringing in $240. So the radio stations will load up. They'll load up on 30-second commercials. It's something that I don't like to do. I feel like you should charge more and get back to music because people want to hear music more than they do all about the commercials. And as I said, the call letters of the stations versus the numbers, the kids today, it's not their fault though that they don't know what 94.3 is or what 107.5 is. Everything's digital, and as you look at your clock radio, it doesn't say WNBF on, it says 1290 or it says on the FM side 94.3 or something. Now the same thing happened, everybody, with television. You used to sit down and watch 4 channels, maybe, right? Now, there's got to be over 200 choices as you watch television. And the worst invention in my lifetime, the worst invention in electronics in the past 100 years was the remote control. Advertisers were screaming at the Federal Communications Commission in Washington, don't allow this, because you had to get up, go up to the TV and change the station, sit back down, get up again, change it. Now you're sitting on the couch and somebody's in the chair, you throw it over, they throw it back, and the remote control is, how can I say, advertisers just don't like it, but I know we all do it, I even do that. I do that as well. Now, another thing, this you'll find interesting. Am I doing okay so far?
Yeah.
So far, so good? I usually drop in a couple stories along the way. Mrs. Grabowski, my Polish friend, she went to the doctor. He says, hi, Mrs. Grabowski. She says, hi, doctor. He says, hey, Mrs. Grabowski, your check came back. She says, yeah, I know, and so did my arthritis. So, yeah. We just came off a cruise ship, and there was one guy on the ship that came up to me and he said, Bill, he says, I'm only married for my second time 6 months. And I'm such a nice guy. I take my wife out to dinner and breakfast and lunch. I take her out to eat 3 times a day. I says, really? He says, we know every restaurant in town. As a matter of fact, we started going back to the same restaurants again and again. So every day I'm taking my wife out to eat. One day she surprised me. She says, honey, she says, take me somewhere I've never been. So we took her in the kitchen. Oh, I just got to drop one of those Bill Parker stories in there. Here's something you'll find interesting, because as you listen to radio, there's usually nobody there. It's a computer. In the morning, when you're going to work, when the kids are going to school, there's usually a live radio broadcaster in the studio, because that's the time you want the news, the weather, the sports, the traffic. But once you're at work, and once the kids are at school, the computer takes over. This is called voice tracking. Voice tracking. Let me explain this to you. So now when you listen to radio tonight, going home or tomorrow, you say, oh, is that how they do it? Voice tracking means that, and I do the oldies on Saturday, so I'll do my show Friday night. You go in, you put the computer on, the computer says, we are going to play Neil Diamond, the Beatles, Anne Murray, and Earth, Wind, and Fire. In the computer is the weather. In the computer are the commercials. In the computer is the sports. So you don't do any of that. So you open the microphone and you say, hi, Bill Flynn here. I'm so pleased to be with you. I've got some wonderful music for you. On the way we have Neil Diamond, the Beatles, Anne Murray, and Earth, Wind, and Fire. Then you stop. The mouse stops. You scroll down with the mouse. The computer played those songs. The computer played the commercial. So you go to the last song, the Earth, Wind, and Fire song, and you hear the last 20 seconds of it. Then you say, that's one of my favorite songs, one of my favorite groups. I saw them at the college. They're absolutely terrific. Look, we're going to go to a break. Then we're going to come back with Chicago, ABBA, the Doobie Brothers, and the Beach Boys. Click the mouse. You scroll down again. You don't play the music, you don't do the commercials, you don't do the sports or the news. The computer does that. Other people at the station have put it in there. So, all right, so now it's about 1:15. So you hear the last song by the Beach Boys, you'll come back and say, boy, they were such a terrific group. I mean, everybody enjoyed their music. From the West Coast, they were marvelous. We're going to go to a break, we're going to check the weather, and then we're going to come back with Herman Hermits, Paul Anka, Jay and the Americans, and the Drifters. But you don't play the music. You take the mouse, you scroll down. So, for 1 hour, you spoke for 6 minutes. 1 hour is done. You go to the next hour, you do the same thing. You go to the next hour, you do the same thing. Now, since this voice tracking came up, many guys in our business have lost their jobs. Because, like for example, as I said earlier, one station here, one company has 5 radio stations, all right? So one guy can go into the oldies station and do what I just told you. He's done a 4-hour show in a short period of time, all right? He'll walk over to the country station, give you a different name, do the same thing. Walk over to the classic music station, do the same thing with a different name. Walk over to another station. So one guy is, we have 5 stations, and I think we have 4 announcers. So everybody's doing shows on all different stations under different names. That's a big secret in our business. It's called voice tracking. But, ladies and gentlemen, when you listen to Bill Flynn on Sunday morning, whoa, I'm right there, I got my coffee, I'll take your call, you lost your dog, mom and dad have an anniversary, you tell me and I'll tell everybody. There's nothing like live radio. Nothing like live radio. That's why my show is so huge and so popular. But voice tracking is a key. Now, because of the talk shows that have come around with Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and all them, many broadcasters all over the country lost their jobs because these guys are now 700, 800, 900 radio stations around the country. And that seems to be the trend. The talk shows are a savior for AM radio. The young kids don't even know what it is. They listen to FM. But talk shows has drawn adults over because they don't do the talk shows on the FM. So your talk shows are very popular. They really get you involved. They hold on to the audience, and they really entertain. This is what a lot of the talk shows do. They're kind of entertainment shows. So that's over on the AM side. Now, before I go any further, does anyone have a question?
What do you do in between when you're...
Wait, I'm sorry, what's that?
If you only have 6 minutes to work, what do you do in between?
Oh, you just, you do the 6 minutes, then you go on the other radio station, you do the 6 minutes. The other one, you do the 6 minutes, other one, do the 6 minutes. Then you do commercials. The rest of the day, you got to put commercials, write commercials, and put commercials in the system. So we're there all day long, yeah. Yes?
Bill, are the songs that are played selected by a local program director or by a formula from the computer as far as what music is popular or what songs are popular?
The songs that are played come from a company. Brian, I don't know where they're from. This one is all 50, this is all 60s. Shimes picks the music. This is all 70s. So it's both. It's available on a network, but the local program director can select the songs he wants and puts them in there. I wish we were playing more 60s. 60s are still strong. Although it's 60 years ago, 50 years ago, 60s was the best decade because in the 60s, you had Motown, you had Diana Ross, you had the Four Tops, you had all those terrific groups from Motown in Detroit. The same decade you had the British invasion, Herman Hermits and Dave Clark Five, Beatles and Monkees and Pet Clark and all that. You had the New York City groups, Dion and the Belmonts, you had Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons in the same decade. Then you had some of the soft people, like I said, Bobby Vinton, Paul Anka, all in that one decade. Herman Hermits did a thing on that when we had them here at the Magic City Music Hall. He said that was the greatest decade of music. The greatest decade of music were the 60s. And people remember we had 5 different kind of entertainments all over the country, West Coast, England, and all around. So that was a marvelous decade, and it's still popular. But then, as I said in my talk, everything changed. Along came Neil Diamond and John Denver in the 70s, and a lot of those other ones just went away, and other music came in. So, question here. Yes, right here. Yes, sir.
It seems to me the more homogenized these stations become and the less localized, the more reason there is just to go to Pandora and Sirius XM and not even listen to local radio.
Yeah. Do you listen to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is correct. A lot of the the shows you hear that are network or filtered in are not local. A lot of the local emphasis is gone from the stations. That's why I'm so proud of my show, because we have a lot of that in there. But people want to hear more local involvement, and stations here can't do that because they're picking it up like INR's new format. They're playing 70s. They're picking up that format out of a group of stations in Allentown that they own. The announcers are in Allentown, but they say nothing about the Rotary Club having a breakfast or the church having a festival. All that is gone when you pick up shows like that. I listen to Sirius Radio in the car too. I'm a big fan of Cousin Brucey's still on. I hear him on Saturday night, and I'll listen to Fox an awful lot. But Sirius Radio is not enough to take over everything, but because nothing is local. That's why we try to be local. NBF is the most powerful local station just in the morning. Just in the morning. Any other questions? Yes?
Of all the stations, you mentioned how many AM and FM stations there are numerically. Are any of them independents, or are they really literally owned all by, a series of chains,
There are 3 locally owned companies, Mike. One is the one in Owego, WEBO and FM. Dave Radigan owns those. The station I'm with, George Harris, lives in Shenango Bridge. George is a broadcaster. He owns 8 radio stations, but he knows. And the third one is Magic 101 on the Parkway. Steve Galinsky owns that. All the others are owned by corporations. And it's sad because the corporations make the decisions. You have to listen to what they say. And many times the local manager doesn't have the backbone to stand up to the corporation and say, wait a minute, we're in Binghamton. That may have worked in Buffalo. It may have worked in Philadelphia, but that won't work here. A lot of them don't do that. I felt so bad when we had the flood a couple of years ago. All right? George Harris, our local owner. I made it to the station. Steve came in, Tom came in, I think George was there. So we put all the music, you'll like this story, we put all the music on the shelf because people that had radios wanted to know where the flood was, who was affected. I lost my power, and there was so much we had to tell people. So much we had to tell. So I got on the phone and I called the emergency squad in Susquehanna County and Tioga County. We had constant information going out because of the flood. Roger Neal and NBF did nothing. Roger told me 2 days later, he says, to do what you did, I would have to ask the manager. The manager has to ask the regional manager. The regional manager has to ask the owner in Georgia if we can do that. Isn't that a shame? Isn't that terrible? That's one of the decisions made by corporation who really don't care much. Most of your corporation managers here locally are not broadcasters. George Harris, Equinox, is a broadcaster. He's the manager. Steve Galinsky is the broadcaster, the manager at Magic. Owego, Dave Radigan is the broadcaster, the manager. At Town Square, the Binghamton stations, Clear Channel, the Endicott stations, the manager is an accountant or an attorney. They know nothing about broadcasting. That's one of the reasons we left over there at Citadel. This guy came in and I said, you ever read a commercial? Nah. Did you ever been a DJ? Nah. Did you ever sell a commercial? Nah. I said, I can't work with you. So we left there. So that is one of the reasons it is so difficult to find people to work in a radio station anymore who are happy and are good at making a living. As I said, when I worked over there, that's the way it was. But there are people in our business that have nowhere to go. Like Roger Neal, Bob Joseph, Tony Russell, who had to retire because his diabetes got real bad. They had to amputate one of Tony's toes and he couldn't go back to work again. But those guys had nowhere to go because they eat, sleep, and drink sports and news and weather. And nobody does that better than WMBF. No one. So these guys couldn't leave. Like, everybody wanted my polka show. They wanted $180,000. We bring in $180,000 in 52 days on a polka show. Unheard of. unheard of. And by the way, the polka show I do is a hobby. It's not my full-time job. It's never been. I've been in sales my whole life. I'm in sales and I do production. The polka thing, I never played golf in my life. Everybody has things they do in their spare time. So I chose to do this show, but my God, did that mushroom. Oh, in my 120 countries now. We're in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Hazleton, Bloomsburg, Poconos, Catskills. A lot of those markets hear my show. One more thing, years ago, most little towns that had local owners, they'd have an Italian show, an Irish show, a German show, a Greek show, a polka show. They're gone. Because the corporations buy the station and say, you want to do the Italian show? You want to do the German show? Put it on the table. We want $300 an hour. And that's what they're getting. Well, my show never had any problem, thank God, because we have lots and lots of wonderful supportive advertisers. We make a lot of money on it. But that's why those shows aren't there. So of all places, with the more ethnic people came over from Europe are in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Hazleton area than there are up here. A lot of them came up to work here at IBM. But that market down there is flooded. And every station down there, not a one is locally owned. Everyone in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre area is owned by a corporation. So one day I'm at Club 100, and Bold Gold Media, which has 12 stations in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Hazel, and Bloomsburg. And they got a big group in Elmira, a big group up in Utica. Well, the CEO is coming through Binghamton, going to Scranton, and he heard me. The next day, the CEO called me, and he says, my God, he said, I am not a polka fan, but you brought me right into your show. He said, you are terrific. He says, we don't have any polka shows down here. I said, yeah, I know, I used to work that market. He says, can you help us out? I said, well, let's talk. So I went down to Scranton 4 times. Finally, we cut a deal, and they had me on 6 radio stations down there every Sunday. We're all over the Wyoming Valley, the Susquehanna, rather the Lackawanna Valley. So we do 3 hours in the morning. It's on the sheet you have. 3 hours in the morning, 10 to 1 on 2 FMs and 3 AMs. Then they run it again on a monster FM in the afternoon. All polka. It's in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre. And the owner called me and he says, you are, what's the word he used? I made a lot of money for them. What did he tell me? We found, yeah, that was it. We found $100,000 because nobody advertises on Sunday. But your advertisers, God bless them, are the last alive. The meat market, the bakery, the mom and pop businesses. They're supporting the polka show. They love you, they love the show, and they pay their bills. So they're doing that down in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre. So if you're down in that area, it's on the sheet. You can hear that as well. All right? Question, sir.
How many polka songs do you have in your library? Is it your personal library or that you have access to? How many?
Oh my God. Whoa. You know, I never counted them. There's got to be a couple thousand. Well, albums. Nobody plays albums anymore. No radio station has a record player. Bob Huckabone might have a couple down in his studio, but record players don't exist anymore. So most companies, realizing that, they burned the albums on CDs. So I'm loaded up with CDs. But the polka show took me a while to learn because there's a difference between the Slovenian, the German, the Polish, and I know all that. People don't know that. But when I go out in public, I'll go to the German club and I'm saying, Begeitswein here. Ein Prost, der Gemütlichkeit mit der Umlaut. Next day I'm over to the Polish festival. Hey, na zdrowie bracia, na zdrowie siostry. I'm over at the Jewish Community Center. L'chaim, we're drinking a toast together. Then I go to the Czech club and I speak 7 different languages, just the greeting, and maybe people think I speak a lot of languages, but I had to learn all that. And because when you listen to a radio show, I have to bring you into it. You have to say, this guy knows what he's talking about. And when I listen to radio, I want to pick that up on an announcer that's playing country music or oldies or whatever, and this is what I've done over the years. And it's amazing my audience is so great, because a lot of people say, oh, they're all dying off. No, I hear people tell me, well, my grandmother and grandfather listened to you, I was in the kitchen, and I had to listen to it. Now they're gone, but I'm in the kitchen and my kids are listening. And then it's so generation after generation. But the thing about my show, this is another topic now, I wasn't going to talk about this, but since you brought it up. Look at that schedule. I go 45 to 48 days in the summer without a day off. I am booked everywhere. I invented this, I organized this. All the churches used to have a little parish picnic. Joe plays the accordion, Betty and Ann can make some pierogies. We get about 30, 40 people here. Well, when I went over to the Polish church the first time, 3,000 people came. They're coming from Halstead, Candor. They're coming from down up by Syracuse, and I was at MBF. The priest and the parishioners had to run to the supermarket so many times to replenish the food. So next thing you know, I get a call from the German club, and I get a call from the Russian Orthodox Church, and over here. So we do all this now, and people come. They come to eat. Those women, God bless them, they make all those pierogies, all the low-fat food, you know, the food you enjoy. I had a question over here. Yes?
Yeah, I noticed on your chart of Equinox Broadcasting that most of the on-air people are men. Do women not go into radio broadcasting?
Women do, but more like to go into television, Linda, than radio. We do have, I think,
have a couple.
Amy's on there and Judy's on there, yeah. And they're very good at radio. But most of your female broadcasters would opt over to television. Yeah, they told me that. One of the anchors at Channel 12 said, I don't want to do radio. I like to be on camera, you know, so people can see me. Anybody else? Yes? Well, I thought you had your hand up there. Anybody else? Any questions? Yes, sir.
When you do the polka show at WVIA, do you drive down there to do it?
You're talking about VIA in Scranton?
Yeah,
that was, no, those are all reruns. Those are all reruns. I did go back and forth, yeah. We do the polka show here on WSKG every Saturday night. And Brian Fry in the background is a great friend of mine, and Brian got me to do that over there. And we record the shows. And you watch that every Saturday. It's on the sheet at 6:30. Scranton Wilkes-Barre is another PBS station. That's WVIA. And I did that for about 5 years. I would go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to the station in Avoca. Because the announcer they had knew nothing about polka. He didn't know, well, that's a concertina. Well, this is an accordion. Well, what's the difference? Well, this band doesn't have any trumpets. They got a button box accordion and a banjo. So the announcer that was doing the show, the audience wasn't learning anything. So when I do SKG show, or the one in Scranton Wilkes-Barre, people are watching, you have to tell them, well, wait a minute, this guy's got 4 guitars, and it's a polka band? Well, why is that? And you got to explain all that to them. But that show, I did that for about 6 years. Barb and I went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And now they're playing reruns. What happened, Brian, you correct me if I'm wrong, what happened was the public broadcast stations would be funded by federal and state. Am I right, Brian? When the economy went bad, the federal and state pulled the funding from the public broadcast stations all over the country. So we got called in at WVIA, the girl and I who did the polka show, the guy who did the big band show, somebody did the country show, and we were told that we can't do it anymore because they don't have the money. So they're playing reruns. I did that about 8 or 10 years ago, what you're watching. They're still playing it, and they're playing it almost every day, Brian. But the ones at SKG, they're fresh. You've been there. You've been in the audience with us. So that's a real popular program. It takes a lot to get it on TV. There's so much to do. There's, yes?
Didn't mean to interrupt you. Speaking of Let's Polka, after your busy summer, because I know you're very busy, will you have any more tapings in the fall or winter?
Brian told me we're going to look at a date for June, because I am packed. As you can see this summer, we're packed. Yeah, I'm in June, late June. June is a quiet month because of graduation. There's not a lot going on in June. We have 3 festivals. The first week, the Greek, the Slovak, and the, what's the other one? Italian, St. Anthony's. What? In June sometime. Any other questions?
Seeing that you understand the market and the need for local, are you mentoring anybody? I mean, you're a local treasurer, but you've been in it since 1970. There might, you know what I mean? Are you mentoring anybody so that they can continue? Because you've got so much knowledge.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. You gotta get a sidekick, Bill, you know?
Kevin is my sidekick. Kevin,
Okay.
no, I don't really have anyone waiting in the wings to take over. I
I
really,
mean, just when you said all those different phrases and the different languages, it was like, wow,
Yeah.
that is so cool.
Thank you, Sue. God gave me a gift, and I never forget to thank Him for that. And whenever I do anything, I said a little prayer here before I started talking to you folks, and I honestly believe that you are gifted with something. I could have went to law school, I could have gone to seminary, I could have did something else, but I think God chose me to do this, and He gave me the talent, and He gave me the mind to remember things and do things, and that's a nice compliment. I appreciate that. That is difficult sometimes to do, because my polka show here is a tremendous sacrifice. That's another reason it's hard for me to find somebody to follow me. I don't know what it feels like to sleep past 4:30 on a Sunday morning. I don't know what it feels like to go to church on a Sunday morning. I don't know what it feels like to have a decent breakfast, to read the paper, to be home with the family. I've never done that. I'm at the radio station every Sunday morning at 6 o'clock, and I don't get home till like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. If I have a festival, I get to the radio station at 6, I do my show till 10. I run out the door, and I do the festival. I don't know enough to go home. After I'm finished broadcasting, I'm at the bar. There's all my listeners. I got 3 drinks waiting for me. A couple hours later, I'm picking up the chairs and putting them on the table with the priest and the parishioners there. So I do that because I like it. A lot of broadcasters say, hey, I get my broadcast done, I'm out of here, I'm going home. But these are all my listeners, so I stay there and spend time with them. And when I first came here, a lot of people didn't know about polka. So what I did is I filled up 3 buses, and I took these people with me to a festival in Connecticut or New Jersey or somewhere. I introduced them. Then when I came back, my dad was a professional dancer. I performed for Bobby Vinn. I performed for Lawrence Wallach when I was dancing. So I taught these people how to dance the polka. So we went to Scranton, we did that. They formed a club there. Went to Elmira, we did that. They formed a club there. In Binghamton, they formed a club here. So we started all of that. But I had to bring people into it and teach them exactly what a good and fun time it was. God has blessed me with you folks coming here tonight. I hope I didn't disappoint you. I just rambled on. I didn't know what I was going to talk about tonight. I just rambled on. I got a big mouth anyhow, so I just went on. And I hope you weren't disappointed. I'm glad to meet all of you. Some of you I don't know. Maybe it's better that way that we don't. But thank you, Linda, for having me here. Ryan, thank you. If you like me, I'll come back again, and we'll do this another time. Okay? Thank you very much,
You must remember this, a kiss is still a kiss, a sigh is just a sigh. The fundamental things apply as time goes by. And when 2 lovers woo, they still say I love you, on that you can rely. No matter what the future brings,